Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Late Nights with Lance. This is Winchester's weekly late night talk show. I'm your host, Lance Gunnar Wines, and today is going to be a little different. Today was certainly a solemn day, a wake up call for a lot of people. Very frightening, and definitely a day that will live in infamy. So while I had a sketch planned and I had an outline of what I was going to say tonight, to sort of get into the swing of things, being that's the second episode of the podcast. I think it would be inappropriate to do something for entertainment value without necessarily mentioning today's events, current events in the United States, and what that really entails. Obviously, we don't have the largest audience. This isn't CNN. I'm no Anderson Cooper. But I definitely want to get what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking out. Speak on today's events and how I feel. And yeah, I'm currently sitting at my computer watching the House vote on the objection to the Arizona electoral vote, and these things are weighing heavily on me, as they should for anyone who's played witness to today's events. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoy, or at least find some sort of value in what I have to say tonight. And I hope that everyone is safe, or as safe as they can be, whether it be at home, with their loved ones, or alone, as long as they're somewhere where they're safe and feel comfortable. And I hope that things improve, because this year is certainly starting out with a bang. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. Again, this is Late Nights with Lance, the Winchester Weekly late night talk show. Uh, and I love you all, and I really appreciate you tuning in. So thank you. Welcome back. Today I've witnessed these events um, from start to finish, and I'm continuing to watch the votes occur on CNN. And I've had a lot of thoughts and feelings and emotions that have really passed through me throughout the day. I think that what we witnessed today really draws on a lot of feelings and a lot of things that may have been inside of us that we weren't really expecting. Lots of anger, lots of confusion and sadness, and it's really difficult to conceptualize. And I really wanted to speak on this, and obviously it's an ego thing, and everyone listening knows that I have a pretty big ego that I need to feed sometimes. Um, I have a podcast called Late Nights with Lance, so I guess that says something. Um, but it's not just because of that classical notion that you know I'm a white man and I live in the United States and I have something to say, and so my voice is the loudest, or my voice is going to be superior. I don't want it to be like that. And I recognize that that is a very common occurrence, especially with politics, and especially in law and in these social science fields. But I wanted to speak on this because I felt so strongly about it, and because I listened to what our president and our president elect has said, and I wasn't really happy or content with what they said. Obviously, our president is the traitor that failed us, and his speech was about a minute long, which is probably the longest that he's ever lasted. And it was about thanking the violent rioters, thanking these neo Nazis, expressing his love and appreciation for them, and telling them to continue to remain peaceful, but to please leave. And there are so many problems with that, obviously, like the fact that he said that we love them and admire them, which is totally not true. They're traitors. But it was odd, and it didn't represent the country. It represented him and the Oval Office, which was rough. And then Joe Biden stepped up to the stage, and he did what he had to do. He delivered a speech that had all the right cues, had all the right points. Um, it didn't support white supremacy or insurrection. He denounced what he needed to denounce, and he did it in a way that was calm and peaceful, which is very different from what we've experienced in the last 4 years. But the thing about Joe Biden is that he's a little too passive for me, and it's always been my issue. He's very centrist and he's very passive. And as much as I admire him and appreciate that he will be our president on January 20th, I feel like today was not the day to be passive because our enemy was not passive, and obviously there's that quote where when others go low, we go high. But that quote doesn't really apply to a coup, an attempted rebellion, and a violent overthrow of our government while the entire government is actually in session. That is more like when someone calls you obese or something. I don't know. Anyway, the point is Joe Biden is too passive, and Donald Trump is. There are lots of words that I probably shouldn't use in this podcast. So I wanted to get my thoughts out there on paper, and I thought that I would deliver them to you guys tonight in an attempt to comfort people who, like me, weren't necessarily comforted by our elected leaders. So I hope that you enjoy this in some way. Obviously, it's not a positive topic. It's not something that I'm happy to be speaking on. But I thought that it needed to be said because our leaders aren't saying it. And I'm tired of that. I'm sick and tired of this Trumpian, I don't even know what to call it, where they keep testing the limits and testing the rules to see how far they can get before someone slaps them on the wrist. And then they think, well, it was just a slap on the wrist. Let's keep doing it. And it's almost like the other side, their opposition, is tired of putting the effort into the simple slap. And so there's this, Republican testing of the waters and this Democratic passive nature. And I'm tired of it because it's gotten to the point where we're literally at a rebellion. We're at, Fort Sumter 2021. And that's scary to me, at least. Apparently not to a lot of people. And so I wanted to speak on that, and I wanted to sort of fill the void, fill the power vacuum that exists because of our poor leadership, which has led to this insurrection. So here it is. For labeling purposes, I've called this piece I Wear an American Flag Mask, simply so I can put that into the program, and because that's like you'll get it. So without further ado, I guess I'll pretend that I'm delivering this to a joint session of Congress or like a fireside chat with President Roosevelt. So here we go. I wear an American flag mask. For COVID, I wear an American flag mask. My Aunt Sandy bought it for me and gave it to me as a gift because she knows that I love Old Glory. I always have, and I always will. I love the American flag. I think that it's beautiful. She was adopted a long time ago, back when she stood for something greater. Charles Thompson of Newcastle, Delaware, gave her symbolism. Thompson served as the Secretary of the Continental Congress for all 15 years of its existence. A leader of great debate and consequential decisions, Thompson, alongside John Hancock, are the only two names to appear on the very first published copy of the Declaration of Independence. Nonetheless, Thompson suggested the following symbolism for the colors of the American flag. White represents purity and innocence. Red represents hardiness and valor. And blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. The current design of Old Glory is her 27th iteration, meaning that she has been modified 26 times since 1777. A lot has changed since then, but unfortunately, a lot has remained the same. Today, we witnessed an act of domestic terrorism, an insurrection, an attempted rebellion, a coup. Today, during the certification of the Electoral College votes to officially recognize President-elect Joe Biden in preparation for the upcoming presidential inauguration, alt-right sympathizers and Nazi rioters invaded and seized control of the United States Capitol building for a short period of time before abandoning their occupation with little bloodshed and negligible arrests. The terrorists were acting under the indirect supervision of President Donald Trump, who provided for the logistical preparations of today's insurrection. The invasion occurred as nearly all members of our federal governing bodies were present, including the individuals tasked with presidential succession in the case of a 25th Amendment activation. Specifically, Vice President Mike Pence was present at the time that his one-time supporters invaded the chambers of Congress. Our elected representatives ducked and hid in fear as armed standoffs occurred at the entrances to the chambers. They were given gas masks in order to protect themselves from any chemical peacekeeping devices that may be used to either incite or deter violence by either side, the law enforcement or the terrorists. After hours of occupation, the threat slowly dispersed and the world was left in awe. There are 2 known casualties from today's insurrection. The first, a woman who was shot as she attempted to enter a barricaded chamber entrance. Her death was announced hours later, after emergency responders were delayed the opportunity to assist her due to the Nazi occupation. The second casualty, American democracy. Her death was a long time coming and at the hands of enemies that this country has been fighting since its establishment. We've been fighting these enemies for centuries. Hatred, fear, bigotry, racism, entitlement, privilege, ignorance, lack of empathy. If you've been around as long as Old Glory, you'd learn to see the same soul in different faces. The redcoats, slave traders, plantation owners, Confederates, the Klan, Jim Crow, Nazis, internment camps, private prisons, the war on drugs, Blue Lives Matter, Make America Great Again, the alt-right. They're all the same. Oppressors, manipulative socialites who keep our people in bondage, modern slave drivers, contemporary nationalists of the American genocidal complex. Today, their existence is ever apparent, their victory nearly accomplished. Today, the President of the United States nearly completed a successful coup of his own government in an attempt to overthrow our democratic process and coerce our elected officials into recognizing his illegitimate claim to power. The President of the United States nearly completed a successful overturning of a secure nationwide election, which resulted in his opponent receiving the greatest number of votes in our country's history. Almost. But while the damage is done, the war is far from finished. We are at a time of crisis where the very fabric of what we hold dear is threatened by a delusional tyrant in control of the greatest powers known to man. We must rebuild, but we are a long way away from being able to call ourselves anything close to a home. A home is safe. A home is welcoming. And it is apparent that nobody, not even our highest elected officials, are safe here. Today, I am reminded of Old Glory, of her colors. When people think of purity, they think about sexual purity. They think about the freedom from immorality. But that is merely one definition of purity. Purity is the freedom from adulteration or contamination. We must continue to fight to be free from the contamination of hatred that is so invasive within the soul of our country. Innocence comes from the Latin innocentia, which means not harming. We must begin to make amends for the violence of our past and put an end to the harmful processes that continue to keep our people in bondage. Hardiness is the ability to endure difficult conditions. We must prove our hardiness in these darkest of times as we continue to battle the harmful notions and beliefs that fuel the violence and bigotry within our borders. Valor is considered to be great courage in the face of danger. We must stand up for those who cannot stand, speak up for those who cannot speak, and be willing to make good trouble in the name of doing what is right. We must remain vigilant of the threats to ourselves and our posterity. We must seek justice for all people of all walks of life. And we must persevere in this conflict. Today, I am reminded of one of my favorite quotes. On the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, President Obama spoke to the people of Selma. Our job's easier because somebody already got us through that first mile. Somebody already got us over that bridge. When it feels the road's too hard, when the torch we've been passed feels too heavy, we will remember these early travelers and draw strength from their example and hold firmly to the words of the prophet Isaiah. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. We will persevere. We will overcome. We are hope. Thank you all, and stay safe. Well, welcome back. There you have it. That's sort of what's been weighing on my chest all day. It felt good to get that out. And, it probably won't change anything. I doubt that it will, raise the dead or awaken any deep-rooted, spirit of justice in the belly of someone who needs to hear it. But it felt good to get it out there, and it felt good to have people that I guess actively, want to listen to me and choose to listen. It's been a day, it's been a rough day. Right now at 11:46, we see the joint session counting votes, certifying votes, and it's overwhelming, and there's so much negativity and so much just distress, like it's such negative stress. And it's hard to imagine that we've experienced all of this in not just the last week or the last year, or the last 4 years. It's hard to imagine that our generation has been through so much in such a short time. And it seems like every day is a new major historical event that our kids and our grandkids are going to study in the history books. And hopefully, if they go to the right school and have the right teachers, they'll be taught those events, how they actually happened, not the typical soft Columbus Day version of it. So with all that negativity, I did want to kind of close this out. I don't intend to do any sort of entertainment shit with this. So I wanted to end this with one more section, which we're in right now, which is something that I thought was really powerful from today's events that I really needed to share as well. So obviously, I wanted to share my feelings about what happened, but I also want to share sort of like the positive. It's not even positive. It's just not as negative. So today, as I was watching the news and I was on Twitter, kind of dead scrolling on Twitter, watching the live tweets come in from everyone from news pundits to representatives who were in lockdown to Donald Trump, who was being weird, or his daughter, who called them true patriots and then had to delete that tweet. And while I was live scrolling and I was sharing screenshots on Instagram, I came across a photo that is probably the most powerful photo I've seen in a long time. And so I'm going to describe the photo to you, and I'll share it on my Instagram and on my Facebook for you to see. But the photo is taken during the insurrection, during the occupation of the Capitol building. And it is in one of the chambers of Congress. I'm not sure exactly which one. I believe the Senate. And sort of, I guess, the audience. I don't want to call it an audience section, but I guess like a balcony area. Um, and the photograph is taken at an angle, looking down, and there's a woman on the ground who is grabbing at her chest. And the woman appears to be, I guess, middle aged, I'd say, and she is holding onto her chest, and she is on the floor. She's very red in the face. You can tell that she's overwhelmed, and she appears to be having what I know to be an anxiety attack from personal experience. My first anxiety attack back in college, I thought was a heart attack. Um, and she's sort of uh, grasping at her chest in a way that looks like she's experiencing chest pain, and as if she's having a heart attack from just the stress of everything going on. So she's laying on the ground, on her back, obviously in hiding because of the active um, rioters that were in Congress, and she's obviously in a fit of distress. And while her left hand is grasping at her chest, her right hand is being held by a gentleman. This gentleman is looks to be around middle aged as well, maybe in his mid to late 40s, a little bit younger than the woman, I believe. Extremely well dressed gentleman in a blue suit, dark navy suit, and he is in his left hand holding one of the congressional gas masks, which appears to be a plastic bag with some sort of ventilator attached to it so that you can see their complete face, I guess, for identification purposes, because obviously in an event where you would need these, it's important to identify who needs to be protected. So in his left hand, he's holding a gas mask, and his right hand is extremely firmly grasping the right hand of this woman who is laying on the ground in utter disarray. And I can tell that he's firmly grasping her hand because his knuckles are white. I mean, he's a white guy, but his knuckles are protruding from his hand in a way that he is firmly grasping her hand, and while leaning in to oversee what's going on. Obviously, there are other individuals in the photo. A number of gentlemen lounging on the stairs, attempting to hide, wearing masks, and then other individuals laying on the ground wearing masks, surrounding this couple. And so, I mean, couple as in two people, not as in a relationship. So, like I said, the photograph is of a middle-aged woman who is grasping onto her chest, who, if you didn't know the situation, you would assume is probably having a heart attack, but is more than likely having an anxiety attack. And then another gentleman who is overseeing, overlooking, protecting this woman and comforting her during this insurrection. It's an amazing photo. So more about the photo and what it entails. So the photograph is of Representative Jason Crow. So apparently it was the House of Representatives, not the U.S. Senate. I apologize for that. So the photograph is of Representative Jason Crow, who is a Democratic representative from Colorado, and he is comforting Representative Susan Wild, who is a Democratic representative from Pennsylvania. And the caption for the photo, this is shared by NBC News at 5:54 p.m. Today. Obviously, it's from earlier. Says Representative Jason Crow, Democrat from Colorado, comforts Representative Susan Wild, Democrat from Pennsylvania, while taking cover as rioters disrupt the joint session of Congress. So I thought this was very powerful. Um, and I had no idea who these people were. Which, I spent some time in Pennsylvania. I have no connections to Colorado. So I continued on Twitter. I searched the individual's name to learn more about this man who is the perfect human embodiment of chivalry and healthy masculinity. And I found this tweet. And this was from earlier, I guess, when the photo was published. And it says, just a reminder that Jason Crow, a Democrat, was one of the last people evacuated out of the House chambers because he wanted to stay and make sure everyone else got out safely. James Crow is an Army Ranger who served 3 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq and was awarded the Bronze Star. So obviously this gentleman has a very illustrious career, military career. I thought it was very interesting, obviously, that he stayed there, sort of, continuing to assume his duties, even though he is retired. You never say ex-military, you say retired military, because, always and forever. So this retired Army Ranger who served 3 tours in the Middle East during the War on Terror was awarded the Bronze Star. And he remained in the House chambers during this insurrection when they had no idea what was going on, when, there was gunfire, there were, bombs that were discovered. They had no idea how far the violence would go. He remained to see that his peers, his colleagues in the House of Representatives were all evacuated safely before he left because, no man left behind. And more on Jason Crow, I discovered apparently he was quoted as saying, I haven't been in a situation like this since I was an Army Ranger in Iraq. And many sources published this quote. And he went on to say, and this really hit me. Jason Crow went on to say, I thought we'd have to fight our way out. And that, when you see the photo, you'll realize how real this is. And, we all have different opinions about our government, our elected representatives, everything going on in Congress and in the United States. We all have opinions about our country and what it stands for. But there are really some heroes out there. And, I have a number of family members who are in the military, who are in the Army and National Guard. And I see a lot of them in this. And the fact that this person is a true representative. When I say that I want to be represented by someone who truly cares for the people, puts service above self, and would, put it all on the line for this country and for the citizenry of this country, this is what I mean. I mean, this person is someone that I trust as a representative. And the fact that I'm not sure how familiar he is with the representative from Pennsylvania. I mean, they work together, they're colleagues. I don't know if they're newly elected or if they've been working together for years, but I assume that they're not close friends. They're from different states, they have different constituencies, all sorts of things. But for him to find this woman who is obviously in disarray, who is visually having an anxiety attack, a panic attack on the floor, while there are active shooters and bomb threats and an invasion of the Capitol building, and to go and grab her hand like that and sort of stay over her, shield her, and protect her and comfort her. I mean, that's powerful. That's a hero. That's a patriot to me. Not the people who were climbing the walls, breaking the windows, carrying the Confederate flag through the halls of the Capitol building. This man is a hero. And, when I saw it earlier and I kept staring at it and I was shedding tears, um, and, it's just something to think about that we all have an opportunity in our lives. Um, we had different opportunities to step up and to do something greater. And I think there's a quote, I think it's by Coach Jimmy V, the late Coach Jimmy V, that said, God loved ordinary people. That's why he made so many of them. And I mean, that's the truth. We don't have to be extraordinary all the time. That's impossible. We're not all walking around as heroes. We don't wear capes. Um, but every now and then you're given the opportunity to do something great, to be a hero, to step up. And I think this is the perfect opportunity. So I'll share this photo of these two individuals. So shout out, I don't know if you'd ever hear this, but shout out to Representative Jason Crow of Colorado and Representative Susan Wild of Pennsylvania. And I really wanted to end this with something that I take very seriously, something that I care about. And this is a shout out to other Army Rangers, other servicemen and women who um, actually who are real patriots, who actually stand up and fight for the citizenry, the Constitution, the posterity of our country. And so I want to share with you the 7 values of the Army. These core values are things that I used to tease my cousin Josh about when he finished basic training. But I do have one of the coins, the challenge coins, which has the 7 core values. So I want to share these with you in the hopes that you hold on to them and remember them in these difficult times, because they're necessary now more than ever. So the first is loyalty. True faith and allegiance to the Constitution, the Army, your unit, and other soldiers. Duty. You must fulfill your obligations. Respect. Treat people as they should be treated. Honor. Integrity. Personal courage. My personal favorite, the one that I always quote, and the one that I always say to Josh, selfless service. Remember these values: loyalty, duty, respect, honor, integrity, personal courage, and selfless service. And I just hope for a better day tomorrow. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Again, my name is Lance Wines, and this has been another humble episode of Late Nights with Lance. Thank you all. And Josh, if you're listening, I love you. Peace.